Hello, good evening. Hello, hello. Welcome to another episode of UnMuted. Thank you all for tuning in. If you could please share the broadcast. Today's episode is a continuation from Thursday's episode. I was actually on location and I thought I would be able to do that, and that did not happen. Again, my name is Felicia Franklin. I am your host or your moderator of UnMuted. I see how this episode is going to go today because my aunt is already with it. I'm glad you're praying, but you don't have to worry, honey. My name is Felicia Franklin, and I want to thank you again for tuning in to the episode. For those of you that do not know me, or if this is your first time tuning in to the episode UnMuted, I want to tell you a little bit about it. For those of you, this is not your first time tuning in with us, I want to thank you again. UnMuted was in the works, was behind the scenes for about 2 years. And I had been preparing for it, but I had been putting it off for such a long time because of the situations that I had been through in my life, the things that I was going through at the particular time that I was working on it. I knew that it was a call for me to do this, but I was afraid to step outside of myself. I was afraid of the rejection. I was afraid of what people would think of me because of my past. I was afraid of the unknown. I kind of feared, what if I fail? This is uncharted territory for me. So I was really, my own insecurities set in, the insecurities that I didn't even know that I had. I got in my own head about it. I pushed it out of my mind. I worked on it, but I just never set a date to do it because of all of the distractions that were in my own mind, the distractions and the insecurities that I had within myself. I learned a lot about myself through this process. I felt that because I had been muted for so long through my own situations that I couldn't help anyone else. And my relationships muted me, situations in my life muted me, situations that I like to call life relationships, because we all go through situations in our lives, whether they're in relationships with different people. There are just different things that we tend to go through our lives. And I call those things life relationships because life happens to us all. We don't all handle those situations in our life relationships the same. However, they do happen. For me, I felt stuck. I felt alone. I felt ashamed. I felt ashamed of the things that I had gone through. I felt ashamed of some of the things that I had done in my past. I went through some things that I believed that I would never get through, that I would never grow through. In my heart, I held on to things that I should have let go a long time ago. But we have to go through in order to grow through, in order to get through. And I was at a place in my life that those things that I had not gotten over, they weighed me down. I felt that I was going to be judged. I felt that I was going to be misunderstood. I felt that I would continue to be rejected. So that muted me. My own situations, my own thought processes muted me. I didn't look like what I had been through. On the outside, I looked one way, but on the inside, I had gone through some things that I hadn't quite made it through yet. And I know we can all relate in some capacity. What I've gone through may not be something that others have gone through, or sometimes we've all gone through the same thing. We just don't handle it the same. But I was hurting and it was destroying me on the inside. And I tended to maintain on the outside. I tend to, do well in my work and do well in the other things that I was doing. But I put so much into my work where I didn't have to deal with maybe what I was going through on the inside. I kind of pushed it to the side maybe. And I drove myself, and I was really driven by the things that I was doing. But in all of that, I wasn't handling what I needed to handle to become the whole person that I really need to be. I would ask God, why me? Why me? Why did I have to be the one to go through? Why did I have to be the one to go through this situation? Or why did this have to happen to me? Or why did that have to happen to me? Whatever the situation was at the time, I would constantly ask myself or ask God, why me? Why me? Why me? Finally, I stopped asking why me. And when he gave me an answer and I started saying, why not me? I realized that we all go through. And it was things that, are still personal to me. So I may not disclose, but when God, gave me my purpose and gave me reason, then I stopped asking the questions, why me, why me? And I stopped questioning him so much. And I just started saying, why not me? And when I did that, it put me in a better place because I didn't want to be bitter. I didn't want to be cynical. I didn't want to hold on to things in my heart that I should have let go of. So it in all of that, my healing came through all of that. It was through my isolation, and it was through my hurt. It was through the pains, and it was through all of the rejections, and it was through everything that I had gone through in my past that UnMuted was birthed. It was through me becoming a whole person, through me being healed from the things that I had gone through and being able to let go, that UnMuted was actually birthed. And I realized that what I had gone through was not meant for me to just hold on to, but to help other people get through it as well. So here we are today, growing through what we have been going through. And without further ado, I want to introduce to some, and I want to say hello, thank you for tuning in to others to another episode of UnMuted. This week's topic, which is a continuation to Thursday night, which we're normally on Thursday night, kids need love too. So let's get into that. And then feel free to comment. Feel free to post your comments. And I like to go back and forth so I can see your comments. I will comment on if you have questions and different things, put it in the comment box. You can actually inbox. But I want to go ahead and get into this topic. Kids need love too. Where did this particular topic come from? One of the things that brought this topic about was a conversation that I recently had with someone, and we were talking about things that happened to us or things that we dealt with growing up, and I even thought about my own child. I can recall going through my divorce that I felt that I might have needed some counseling, that I might have needed someone to talk to, maybe some therapy. I didn't feel like I was crazy, but that was something that I needed for myself. But how often do we have children and we go through situations and we tend to forget about our children? If we're going through situations and we feel that that particular situation is maybe traumatizing to us, may have taken us through a state of depression or semi-depression or a feeling of oppression or isolation or whatnot. How many times do we actually take a step back and think about our children? Because what we go through, our children go through those very same things as well. They may not go through it to the capacity that we go through it, but because they are ours, because they are oftentimes in the same household, they go through those very same issues as well. So our kids need love too. They need that time. They need to maybe get some things off of their chest. People can tend to overlook what children feel or how they feel or look at it as being minute. But one of the things that I've learned from that is that causes children to grow up to become adults with issues. Simply put, I can remember myself. I can remember growing up in middle school and in high school. I was I played basketball, but I was a big track star. My thing was track. I can remember now, even to this day, this is something that I cannot shake. I don't have hard feelings about it, but I remember it so vividly. Why this is one of the memories that I tend to have, I have no idea. But I can remember growing up and playing basketball and running track through middle school and high school, my mom only being at one basketball game. I can remember my mom only being, and my family really only being at one track meet. Now, the particular track meet that they actually came to was a big track meet, and college scouts were already looking and whatnot. But I can remember that. I can remember basketball game after basketball game, even at home games, no one being there. I can remember track meet after track meet, no one being there. People were looking at me, colleges were looking at me, even in middle school and early high school, looking at me for running track. And my parents or my mom wasn't there. I didn't have the support system there. Now, bid you, I'm an adult. I don't harbor hard feelings or resentments or anything from that. The situation is what the situation is. The situation was at the time what it was. However, that's something that I can't forget. Now, being an adult and having a child, I do understand that that is one of my motivations for doing what I do with my son. If I can't, I don't miss anything. I don't miss a football game. I don't miss a wrestling match. I don't miss a tournament. I'm at advisory council boards, anything, robotics, anything that he is involved in, I am there. Now, I can remember when he was younger, I missed a lot. Being military, working for the Department of Corrections, I did. I missed a lot because I was away or I had to work to provide. And I remember praying and asking God to work it out where I had, a job where I can be there for my child. I didn't want to just pay the money for him to participate. And I didn't want to just send the money so he can be involved in things and do this and do that. I actually wanted to be there because I knew that my presence being there would be more and would mean more to him than him just participating in those things alone. It mattered to me, so I knew that it mattered to him, that it would matter to him. Now, I'm thankful to this day that he really does not remember me not being there. He does not remember those times where I was just not able to be there, but I remember, and it matters to me. So I would ask the question, I would even pose the question to some of you that are watching. Does it matter to you? Do you think that it matters to your children whether you are there, whether you are present or not? No, they may not say anything. Everyone's job doesn't allow them to be at everything that their children are involved in. I get that. I understand that. I've gone through that. I was raised in that. I can understand that. But to not be able to attend anything, how do you think that affects your children? We are at what we want to be at. Now, a lot of people, I noticed that, these days, a lot of people live their lives through their children. They weren't able to do this in school. They weren't able to do that when they were growing up. So they push their children to do the things that they actually missed out on, i.e. a lot of the sports, a lot of athletics. There are some fathers that, push their children to be the best basketball players or the best football players, and some mothers also that they could possibly be because they're living through their children. It may be something that their children actually wants to do. And it may not be. It may be something that their children want to do because they want to gain the approval of that particular parent. But what is that doing to our children? Do you actually sit down and talk to your children about those particular issues? Now, I try to talk to my child about everything. Some things he may want to discuss with me, some things he may not. I try to make sure I have an open relationship because I want to know how he feels about certain things. I want everything really, but is he going to tell me everything? Probably not. but I still ask because it matters to me. When he gets older, I want him to know that his mother did everything that she could to make sure he had everything that he needed, most of the things that he wanted. And I was present. I was relevant in his life. Because one thing about it, we only have them for a limited amount of time as children. They grow up. Those from 0 to 18 goes by so fast. I mean, Titus is 16 years old. It was like the other day he was 6 years old. I can recall the things that I missed, but he doesn't. And I'm at a place, I try not to miss anything. I don't care what it is because that matters. Aside from that, participation and being there and being relevant, there's also the home life that children grow up in. So I can remember, my mother and my father. I can remember the arguments. I can remember the fussing and the fighting and, really the physical fighting. And I can remember all of that. Even as an adult, there's some memories I just do not have. Why the memories that I do have happen to be some of the worst moments that we've actually gone through, I have no idea. Those are the things that drive me to be the best parent that I can possibly be. But in saying that, how many things have you gone through as parents, as individuals in your past growing up that you dealt with, that you still think about today? Traumatic things, stressors, even things that causes you to have that are triggers for you right now. How many of those things you still at some point find your mind wavering back to thinking about? How many of those things do you actually think about now? And you wonder why you have those thoughts. I would even like to submit this for your consideration. If you're having those thoughts as an adult, think about some of the things that your children are going through today, that they may have those very same thoughts when they're older. See, it's meant for us to shape them, to mold them, to groom them, to make them into what they're supposed to be. We can't shield them from all hurt, but we can do what we're supposed to do as parents. Every situation is not going to be the best situation. Every situation is not going to be peaches and cream, and it's not going to be roses. But it's up to us to make sure that we have those conversations with our children. It's up to us to make sure that our children get the love, feel the love. It's up to us to make sure that our children really don't go through what we went through if we can help it. Things that I went through in my life, I really try to put myself in a position to make sure that my son does not have to go through the very same situations that I went through. There are things that, situations and for instances that happened to me in my childhood, I would not wish those things on anyone's child. I would not wish that anyone any child had to deal with those things. And I know that if some of my family actually watched this and they were like, oh, she shouldn't, or why did she just say that? I can remember growing up, and I was actually in high school at the time, and my sisters under me. They hadn't quite made it to high school, but we went through some hard times. And I can remember living in the house with no running water. Now, this wasn't back in the 60s and, and 70s or not, or back in the day in the 30s and 40s, not so much. This was in the 90s. That was a hard time for us. I mean, literally for months, we were living in the house with no running water. We were running electricity from my next door neighbor's house. Thankful that we had someone there, but that was a hard time. That was a hard time. And because of those things that I went through then, it makes me grind harder now. So my child won't have to deal with that. I can remember having conversations with my grandmother and God rest her soul, that's my favorite girl. I can remember sitting down and being amazed at my grandmother. She could work a crossword puzzle like nobody's business, but she couldn't read or write. That was amazing to me. And I would sit up under her and I would listen to the stories that she would tell and things that, when she was younger, or things when my mother was younger and my aunts were younger, and, and how she raised them and the different things. I would listen to those things and how she had to work and how my grandfather had to work, and the things that they did. I can remember spending the Christmas break with her, and I can remember feeding the hogs. I was amazed at that particular time growing up. That was the norm for them, but it wasn't the norm for me. But I can remember, watching her and her teaching me how to go out and feed the hog slop. Kids these days have no idea what that is like. But I remember those times, and I remember how they lived, and I remember how we lived, and then to become a teenager and the things that we went through. I can survive a lot because of how I grew up. I can make it through a lot because of how I grew up. I often say I wasn't born with a silver spoon in my mouth. It was because of my grandmother that I had furniture in my first house, my first apartment. It's because of my grandmother. But she didn't give it to me. But I remember her going and she told my aunt, actually the very aunt that's watching right now, she said, take us to this certain furniture place. And she was like, okay. And she took us and she walked in and she told the man, she said, this is my granddaughter. Make sure this is my granddaughter. Let her get whatever she wants. And she's going to pay for it. And if I didn't do anything else in my life, I was going to make sure I paid for that furniture. Now, I could have went above and beyond and got this, and this, and blah, 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 blah. But I didn't. I got a simple living room set and a bedroom set. But I would never, ever forget that. I've even told my son the same story, because no one gave me anything. But on my grandmother's word, I was able to get furniture for my first place. It wasn't a fantastic place. It really wasn't. But it was mine. And if I didn't do anything else, I made sure I paid for that furniture because on her word. But that was love. That was the love. And she knew. Things like that you don't forget. Times like that you don't forget. From where I had come from growing up to not having this. Now, people didn't know how we were living because I still made a honor roll every 6 weeks. In Texas, we had 6 weeks. We didn't have 9 weeks. Every 6 weeks, I was on the honor roll. They were calling my name out. It got to the place I was so known that they didn't call me by my first name. They called me Fifi. That was on my certificates. My Fifi in my last name, Fifi Washington. It was so because I did the best that I possibly could. They called me the road runner at the time because I was so fast in track. Regardless of the situation that I actually grew up in, what I was dealing with at home, I didn't want to be like that always. So if that was going to be my way out, then I was going to do the best that I possibly could. I was going to make the grades. I was going to run. I was going to do everything that I could because I didn't want to live like that always. And if it had to be me that got us out, then it was going to be me that got us out. So I'm thankful for my background. I'm thankful today for how I grew up. I'm thankful for the hard times. I'm thankful for the times that we went without. It was hard, but it made me the person that I am. And because of those things that I went through, it's the reason that I raised my son the way I raised my son. Now, some will tell you that I'm really hard on him. Yes, I am. Some will say, no, he gets everything he wants. That is really not the case because I really am hard on him. He's a good kid, but I know that at any given time, something could happen to me, and I need my child to be able to survive on his own. I don't want him to have a nervous breakdown and he can't cope. he can't maintain. Now, I'm not saying that I can shield him from anything and everything, but I want to make sure I instill in him what I can instill in him. So as an adult, he'll be able to survive on his own. It's up to me to make sure that he does everything that he's supposed to do. It's up to me to be able to provide and not just give him everything and overcompensate for what I didn't have and giving him the world and making sure that he has, in that particular aspect. But I want to make sure that he can survive on his own, because tomorrow is not promised, and you can be up today and you can be down tomorrow. You can have it all today and you cannot have it tomorrow. And actually, some people, they have taken their lives because they are not used to not having. There are, adults that grew up with, they had this, that, and the other. And as children, they grew up with this, and this. And as an adult, they didn't have this, or they may have lost their job, or may have, lost money in the stock market, or whatever it may have been, and they couldn't handle it, and they took their lives. I'm not faulting. I'm just bringing a reality to the forefront. That happens. That happens. Children grow and they become adults. So what you instill in them as children is going to follow them as an adult. And they need that love. It's not necessarily the money that they need. It's the love that they need. It's the time that they need. It's the presence that they need. It's the reassurance that the children actually need. We need that as adults. So of course our children need that as well. Time is one thing that you cannot give back. Spend time. You don't necessarily have to spend money, but time is everything. Being present, being relevant. I'm not saying that you have to go to everything that they do, because even if your children are like mine, my son is in a lot. I can't make everything that he does, but I try to make it to everything that I possibly can, because that matters. Exactly. One of the comments was, because it bothered me the most, that's why I make sure that I'm in the perfect area with Titus. Absolutely. Absolutely. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. That is so true. But that does not negate the fact that someone may need help. Someone may need someone else to talk to. Sometimes parents don't know what or how to say certain things to their children. That may be, they may be able to open up to someone else a little bit better than they're able to open up to the parent. It doesn't mean that they don't love you more, they don't love you. It doesn't mean that they have a better relationship with someone else than they actually do with their parent. It's just sometimes it's easier to talk to someone else than it is to actually talk to your parent. And being afforded the opportunity to actually, talk to someone is a good thing. As going through a traumatic situation, it's good to have a counselor. It's good to have a mentor. It's good to have a big brother or a big sister that you can actually confide in. It's good to have a coach. Back in the day, they said, it took a village. It takes a village. It's the same today. The times have not changed that much where it doesn't take a village today. It actually does. Sometimes the coach can be a village. Sometimes a guidance counselor can be a village. Sometimes the mother of another student, a friend, could be a member of that village. Kids need that love. It may not always come directly from the parent, but we want to make sure that we're giving our children exactly what they need and how they need it, so they won't go get it in the wrong place, or so they won't seek it out in the wrong place. Because There are predators that are waiting. They're waiting for insecure children. They're waiting for unprotected children. They're waiting for isolated children. They're waiting for children that feel like they have no one, children that feel like they are alone. Children join gangs a lot of the times because they feel like they don't have anyone that that they can really talk to, or that they feel that loves them enough to reach out or take them under their wing. A lot of the times, if you talk to gang members or ex-gang members, that's why they really pull towards gangs, because they felt the love there. They felt the brotherhood or the sisterhood there. So it's all about the love. We want it, even as adults, looking for it in the wrong place. How many relationships have you been in the past and you thought she was the one, or you thought he was the one, but it turned out they weren't the one because you were possibly looking for love in all the wrong places. So if you're seeking and you're searching, what do you think your children are doing? I know this is probably a touchy subject for some, and it may go over some's head, but if you really take the time to search within yourself, if you look at your background, if you think about the things that you've gone through in the past, you will recall some instances where you felt that, maybe I could have done a little bit better here. Maybe I should have been a little bit more open there, or maybe I should have told him what, I wanted to tell him before he left the house. Or sometimes children need apologies too. Just because they are children does not mean as parents we cannot apologize. Now, yeah, I didn't get any apologies growing up, even if my mom or something was wrong, or my aunt or something like that. But that's neither here nor there. But we learn. Because we're not always right as parents. We can be wrong too. And there's a way to handle everything. And it's okay to apologize, to say, you know what, I was wrong. I flew a little bit off the handle. I could have handled that a little bit better. Or that was not right, I jumped to conclusions, or this, that, or the other, whatever your situation is, at that particular time. It's okay. It's okay to say, I was wrong. I'm sorry. I had to learn that because I wasn't raised on that. I had to learn that. And it's okay to let your child know, I'm not perfect. I was wrong. It is absolutely okay, especially in this generation that we are living in right now, to let your children know. I'll say definitely for Christians, you had not been saved all of your life. That really, you have not always done the right thing all of your life. There was a time you were out doing something, and then we tend to become more mature and, on the straight and narrow, at least trying to be on the straight and narrow. And we tend to let our children think that we've done everything right our entire life. And that's not the case. You may be able to save your child if you actually be honest with your child and tell your child, you know what? I did this when I was young and it took me down the wrong road. I did that. And what you're doing now, I've already done that. You might not want to take that route. And we do. Sometimes we do say, you know what, been there, done that. That's going to, sit them out. And you don't have to be X-rated with them. You can actually be, PG-13 or G or PG, whatever, age your child is, at that particular time, and say, you know what, when I was young, at your age, I did this. And tell them what the situation is according to your confidence level or your comfort level or, whatever with your child. But be open enough with them to say, you know what, I did this. And that was a bad mistake. And this is what the outcome was for me. I've already done what you're trying to do, and it's not going to end well. Let them know that you're not perfect, that you've done things and you've made mistakes. And sometimes we have to give specific things to them if we want to reach them, because our children are not dealing with the same things that we dealt with when we grew up. And we did not deal with the exact same things that our parents dealt with when they were growing up, and they didn't deal with exactly. There were some things, but certain things, they progressed and they escalated. These children today are dealing with a lot more pressures and stressors than what we did. And if you can call growing up in school at our age right now being bullied, being this, and drugs were on the, outpour, and this was going on. And I can remember, girls and, in behind bleachers doing this with the guys, and this was happening and that was happening. If it was happening when we were coming up, you can only imagine what's going on right now, because children today are dealing with a lot more than what we dealt with. We had issues that we dealt with when we were growing up. They definitely have them now. And by us being so closed-minded at times and being so reserved at times, thinking that, we can do as I say and not as I do, or we are so closed-minded and thinking that we should not tell our children that, oh, I did this, and oh, that I did that, because we're saved, because we're trying to walk a certain life, or because we have a certain job, or because, we hold a certain status in communities, or whatever it may be. We don't talk to our children about some of the things that we grew up dealing with. That can be detrimental to your child, because once they're gone, they are gone. You want to keep a grip on them. You want to hold them, hold on to them. You want to pour into them as much as you can while you have them. Because again, you only have them for a certain amount of time. That 1 year, that first year goes by so fast. When they're born to the turning one, it goes by so fast. You're like, I just had you, and now my baby is already turning one. And then they're 5, and you're taking them to pre-K or 3 or whatever, and taking them to pre-K and 5, and they're going to kindergarten. And he was just in kindergarten, and now he's graduating high school. Or she was just in 6th grade, and now she's graduating college. She graduated middle school at 8th grade, and now I'm going to a college graduation. We only have a certain amount of time to have a certain influence on them. And that the way the world is growing these days, if you don't get them by a certain age, you've lost them. And that's reality. They're learning certain things so much quicker than what we learned. Babies are working iPads and iPhones. So you can only imagine what your 5th grader or your 6th grader is dealing with at school, what your 8th grader or your 10th grader is dealing with at school. They have everything out these days. They're, one thing was the smoking cigarettes and the chewing tobacco, when we were coming up, and, they had other drugs also, but now you have the speed, and you have the acid, and you have the X, and you have the vaping, and you have the synthetic marijuana, and you have the real marijuana, and crystal meth is still out there, and all of these things that they are having to deal with these days, the pressures. We have to hold on to them. And we don't hold on to them by not talking about it. We actually hold on to them by talking to them. I try to have a transparent relationship with my son. Now, everything that I did, he can't know. But I do try to let him know that, you know what? This is not it. I've done that. Or if I didn't do it, I knew someone that did do it. And I'm not so saved that I can't talk to my child about what's going on, what's real. Because remember, when you have children, you were that age too. So if you dealt with it, they are going to deal with it, or they are dealing with it, and they're dealing with it maybe times 5 or times 10. It depends on how old you are, what you dealt with, growing up, and how much of it you dealt with. Because growing up in high school in the 90s, my mom may have not grown up with going through some of those very things that growing up when she did. So there were things that I saw that I had to deal with that she didn't see, that she didn't have to deal with. And then there were some things that escalated from her high school time, or whatever, until, me. And then I'm seeing things because I'm really present in my child's life and in the school. And I just do random pop-ups, but that's just me. Not checking up on just him, but making sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to do and letting him know that, I'm there and I'm involved because I'm supposed to be involved, because I'm his mother. I'm supposed to be present because I'm his mother. I don't just wait on the teachers and assume and put it on the teachers to raise my child. I raise my child. That's what we're supposed to do. It's not up to the teachers to raise their children, to raise our children. I'll put it to you like this. One of the things that COVID-19 did was brought to light how much teachers deal with. Because as parents, you can send your children to school and you take a breather. For some, they take a breather. But when you had your children at home, you saw your children the way those teachers saw your children, because you had to teach your children for a certain amount of time. Shout out to all the teachers, to all the educators. Our hats off to you. Everyone didn't do well with distance learning. A lot of parents didn't do well with the distance learning because that was something that they weren't used to, because they put it all on the teachers. We have to do better as parents. We have to. Whether you are the mother and the father raising the children, whether you are a single mother, whether you are a single father, maybe you are the grandparent or raising your grandchildren. We have to do better at raising our children. We have to input and impart in them what they need and not expect others to do it. Sometimes we're so caught up in ourselves and what we're going through and what we've gone through and what we got going on that we forget that they have things going on too. And when they feel like they have no one to talk to, because usually they're trying it at home first. Usually they're trying to reach out to us. We just have to learn how to speak their language. And how do we speak their language? Remember what we felt when we were growing up, when we may have wanted to talk to our parents, but we felt like our parents didn't understand. Remember those things when your children are going through different things. Okay, so when you were growing up, you act the way you act because you had this going on or you had that going on. That's why you act out in class. That's why your demeanor changed. That's why this happened. So if you start to see those changes in your children, just maybe they're going through that because they have something going on also. Let us not forget that we were children and we needed it. So it's up to us to be there for our children because they need it. This may not be what some wanted to hear, but someone needs this today because someone is losing their daughter to some boy because she feels like that's the only place she can get love. Someone is losing their son to everything in the streets because he feels that that's the only place that he's getting love, because he feels that he can't get it at home. His mother doesn't understand, or his father doesn't understand, or no one understands him. But that's how children take their lives. That's why the suicide rate is the way it is today. Now, I know every episode or every couple of episodes, you may hear me say something about suicide or this or that and want to know why because I do that. That's what I do. That's what I do. I handle suicidal issues. I teach on suicide. I train on suicide. I educate on suicide. So I see the suicide a lot. And I have learned and I see the correlation in isolations, in being alone and being restricted and having no one there and being bullied and being pressured. And our children are dealing with that today. An 8-year-old should know nothing about taking his life. A 15-year-old should not be so pressed and bogged down from situations in school that she results into taking her life. Whether it is taking pills or jumping off of a bridge. But it's happening. So these things start at home. They start at home. They start with us. It's up to us to be there for them. I can recall talking to certain individuals, certain friends and whatnot, and I remember them saying certain things like, you know, if this had not happened when I was growing up, then I would be here. If that had not happened when I was growing up, I would be in a better place, or, you know, or whatnot. You know, sometimes we can't put into our children what they need because we haven't gotten over our past. And that's a problem. We're not whole or we're not healed, so we can't give our children exactly what they need. And that's a problem. It's up to us to be made whole, to be healed. It's up to us to put that into our children. There is a such thing as family counseling. If you know you're still battling with certain issues, it's okay to say, I need some help. And if you have children and you still have things that you've gone through in your past that you haven't made it through, it may be a good thing to get yourself and your children a counselor, a coach, a mentor, someone to talk to. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It just means that you care. You care enough about yourself. You care enough about your children. You care enough about your grandchildren that you want them to grow up in a positive environment. We have enough going on in the world today on the outside. The outside influence, the Black Lives Matter, the systemic racism, the everything, the politics that's going on right now. We don't need breakdowns in the home. We need build-ups in the home. Kids need love too. I want to thank you for tuning in to another episode of UnMuted. Again, this episode was a continuation to on Thursday night. We're normally here on Thursday nights at 7 p.m. I was on location on Thursday night and I thought that I would be able to pull that off, but I was not. I wanted to make sure that this episode did get out because I felt like there is some needed information. So I did, that's why I came back in on a Saturday. Originally I said on Friday, but I knew that Friday night at 7 would probably not be a good time, especially with everyone getting prepared for their weekend and football games have just started. So I want to thank you all for tuning in to this episode of UnMuted. If you feel, just share anyway. If it wasn't for you, maybe it was for somebody else. I am aware that not all of my episodes will be for everyone, but it is for someone. So I want to thank you again for tuning in to this episode. Kids need love too. Be sure to check back in a few days in the comments for different resources. I am a true believer that if you are exposing different issues, or if you are bringing certain things to light, that you should have a resolution. So I like to make sure that I link in the comments different resources for different people to be able to go back and utilize. If you have a comment that you want to leave for me, please feel free to leave it in the comment section. Also, you can message us on the Facebook page or Instagram, because we are on Instagram also. And the email address is also in the bio. So feel free to reach out to us if there is a topic that you would like to hear discussed. Please feel free to reach out to us. I will take that under consideration. I will do the research if it's something that I don't know personally. If I feel that I need to bring a guest in for that, we do have guests. I am not the knower of all things. There are people in all lanes. I do know people in respective places. I bring in guests. So if there is a topic that you would like to hear discussed, if I am not if I don't know it, and if I feel that, and if I know someone that is a guru or a specialist in that particular area, I will see if I can get them to come on as a guest. Thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate you all. This is episode number 10. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone that watches on a regular basis. This is something big for me. Regardless of how many views it gets, just me being in the vein that I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So thank you for tuning in to another episode of Unmuted. I appreciate all your time for tuning in today. Hey, next Thursday, 7 p.m. Tune in. Have a good evening.